Folks, we are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. My once a week work spouse is once a week work spousing for another person right now, so we'll see if he arrives. But in the meantime, Jim Kitchen and I will hold this show together.
I don't know about that, but
or something.
we'll get there.
Oh,
Oh, yes, I agree.
yeah, but I think both Jim and I are slightly under the weather. I caught a cold over the weekend, which if you've heard my recent videos, yes, I've been cleaning up the video using an Adobe sound filter, but I know I still sound like Snotties. Oh, good
Sorry,
cat.
I was getting a reflection. Apologies. I'm showing off my shiny. So I have
Ooh,
two. I have two copies of. Oh God, don't do that. So I have two copies of the first appearance of of um,
Batgirl.
not Harley Quinn, but yeah, Harley Quinn in the
Oh,
Batman Adventures comic. And so
okay.
I've sent both off to be graded, and this was the lesser of the two, and it came back at 9.4. So I'm very happy about that.
Oh, nice.
That's the first thing I've ever gotten slabbed. So kind of interested to see how that all pays off. But fingers crossed on the other one. But I put it up there to show off, and now I realize the reflection is just terrible. So um, let's see. We got all sorts of stuff to talk about tonight. I think it's going to be very interesting. We were going to have Tom Tullis on tonight, but Tom had some things where he wasn't sure he was going to be able to give us the full amount of time that he wanted to. Tom's got a project going right now, and is going to be wants to be on before that project's that fundraising crowdfunding effort is underway.
So we
So I
scheduled.
think he's going to be with us next week.
Okay,
I think
sounds
that's what
good.
we've got sorted out, so that should be good. Um, Eric alluded that Mike is probably going to, heaven help us, potato cam in. As we all know,
Uh, uh,
every time that Mike
speaking
tries to use his phone in a car,
speaking of the potato cam.
I'm the
yes, here he
bad
is.
Mike ghost. The
It's the
ghost.
potato cam himself.
The ghost of bad Mike is in this dark, scary space here. Whoa.
Wow.
Well,
Great.
Halloween was last week, Mike. You do realize that.
I'm a little late on everything. So what can I
Nice.
say?
Nice. So, but no, it's an interesting week. I think I talked to Tom today briefly while we were trying to sort out if he was going to make it on the show tonight or not, and he and I had an excellent chat about some things in the industry and things around miniatures in particular, how things have gone. And I don't want to spoil next week's conversation because I think it's a good conversation. I guess what I would say is that what I would say is, just as I've said, it's been the golden age of role playing. We've had it as the golden age for miniatures for quite a while. But just as role playing's number one role playing game has hit some hiccups, Tom really sees some hiccups coming for miniatures, and everything he said aligns with what I see. There we go. So if you've ever wondered what the picture would be like if you actually used a potato as a camera, Mike's camera right now is the great indicator of what that would look like.
There's no point in turning the light on even. I'm in the cell phone lot. The cell phone lot is right down from the airport. I'm picking up Zach this evening for our trip to Long Con tomorrow. No point in really even putting the light on. Let's just do this in darkness.
He's just
Total
he's
darkness.
just sexy and in the dark. And
Oh, and
Folks,
you don't know what's
only
going on
the
in this car.
highest quality live stream will we ever bring to our subscribers and members. And
Absolutely. Eric is, I'm very proud of Eric. I don't know if we talked about it tonight. Probably not, but he's right up because he doesn't like to brag. But he has took an amazing jump in subscribers in the last few weeks because he's whoring himself out to Joe Block and Joe Lawyer and all these other guys. But this is the kind of thing that our audience really deserves. I'm bringing you back to the roots here. This is the roots.
This is
how it started. We didn't know what we were doing or where we were at, or we were doing live shows in men's bathrooms. I mean, God knows where we were doing them at.
Were we?
Maybe I was.
Yes.
You might not have, Eric. So I think.
Yes, Mike is going to be part of a special black velvet painting with Elvis on one side and John F. Kennedy on the other, right? And
Yes.
Mike will be there in the middle.
Absolutely.
It'll
And
be...
so I this is just a thank you to the subscribers that have pushed us up over 7K and on
You look like Wilford Brimley lost in a can of Pringles.
Do you know that Wilford Brimley was younger than me when he did Cocoon? That's the craziest stat I've ever heard. He just was born looking old. He was born looking 80 years old, but he really wasn't that old.
The walrus mustache never hurt him particularly.
No, he got away with it. And we couldn't do that, but Wilford could, and God love the man. He was I believe he was sick. He might have been my age during Cocoon. I'd have to look that up, but he was yes, he was born looking old. We're lucky. All three of us were born looking young and hot, and we still are. So that's a career bonus for us.
Selling point from Mike. Thank you, Mike. I do appreciate it. Makes me
wow. That's
but
sucking up there. I'm not
congratulations, congratulations to Eric for the subscriber bump, and like I said, he's been working harder the last few months than he ever did the first 3 years.
I think I'm working harder at this than I worked in my last couple of years as a sergeant in the NYPD. I'm just saying. I'm actually doing things on a schedule now. I'm getting ahead of the curve. I would have been more ahead if it wasn't for the head cold, which slowed me down. But I think we're on pace to have 8,000 subs by the end of the year and 10K by North Texas. So that's
and the best part is, though, Eric, is that unlike some near-to-well YouTube channels who actually pay for their subscribers, you can tell they have X number of subscribers, and yet the number of views on their videos are pitifully small.
Oh, yeah, non-existent.
We actually have people who are like in our comments.
Yeah, I actually have like more views in a day than they have on the whole month, but that's besides the point.
By the way, Wilford Brimley, I confirmed it, 50 years old.
What? Wait a second. I'm 58, dude.
He was 50 in Cocoon, and he looked like he was 80. So there you go.
Did. My God. That's not a selling point.
That shows you what clean living. And you mentioned, that the subscriber. I want to just give myself and Gary some props. We hit 500 people for a con this week. That would have been a cutoff point, and we'd only like in February or earlier than that in May. We're doing an extra 100 this year. So if you have not got your ticket to North Texas, I would think about doing that before the end of the year.
Yeah, I think I got to get a return ticket.
Done. Yep, we may be done in a month, 2 months. So
wow,
that's a lot. That's Gary. Gary has done a lot of hard work the last couple of years, and that's not me at all. I do nothing. I do whatever. I do this show, and I screw around with you and Jim, and that's pretty much it. And long con, I'll drink some whiskey and I'll mess with people.
From each according to their ability to each according to their needs.
Absolutely.
You're basically a communist, Mike. That's here.
That's why I voted for Mondani. Oh, wait. I'll scratch that. No politics. Never mind.
Oh, my God, please.
I didn't say that.
My Facebook feed has been all these people are like, did you see it? I'm like, okay, you're talking about two states that traditionally have voted this way for the last 30 years, and you're excited about that. Okay, fine.
That's okay.
Stop filling my Facebook wall.
I have people texting me that I haven't heard from in years going to me what my exit plan is. And it's like,
yeah.
Same it's always been. Wake up the next day and continue doing what I'm doing.
We need signs at the borders that say if you're attempting to flee with the problem you've created, you need to turn back around.
You got the book of those, Eric. You can.
I can sneak out if necessary, but
I just I laugh.
You're always welcome. You guys are welcome in Texas. You're always welcome in Texas. We got lots and lots of land, and and you could have 20 acres and a mule or whatever, and it's there's
and
plenty of
never-ending heat.
That's horrific.
Never-ending heat.
And it's 1,000,000 degrees in the summer, but
I can't even believe
this was actually a pretty mild summer. This wasn't too bad. So
that's awful. Okay, so I'm going to kick things off.
Talking about anything?
Yeah,
I had something happen this week that I haven't had happen in a long time. Somebody that I used to play BattleTech with and gained with and was shoulder to shoulder with passed away. And it's tough, right? Because Greg was a great guy, 2 years older than I was, but had been in the Navy and was buddies with my friend Dan, who was my God, he's the one person I ever knew who was like House Lyall all the way in BattleTech. And he and Greg played forever and had ferocious collections of miniatures and so on. I've had a lot going on this week. I haven't had a chance to talk to folks to find out, but he'd been sick for a while and he passed away. I do have a really funny story about Greg. I'd love to share this because this is, I was afraid that I was sort of on the outs list with Greg, and I'll tell you guys why. So back in like 1995. I think it was 95. I went back home to Kentucky for the weekend from Baltimore, and my girlfriend at the time went with me. And when we got there, and caught up with all my friends and so on, somebody said, "By the way, Greg's getting married on Saturday. You could come to the wedding." Like, oh, okay. And I think I had some dress clothes with me. I think I had some nicer clothes with me, but my girlfriend at the time did not. And so was like, I don't have anything to wear. We have to go shopping, right? And there's a couple of really great stories that came out of this little shopping expedition. But by the end of that Friday afternoon, my girlfriend had found a little black dress to wear and was all set. And we went to the wedding on Saturday. And if you're from Appalachia, you might sort of recognize that most people don't tend to look like they came off of a New York runway when they go to a wedding. But my girlfriend at the time decided to pour herself into this little black dress and go for the big hair and the makeup and the whole 9 yards. And the two of us went to the wedding. And that's the first time I ever encountered, whatever you do, try not to upstage the bride. And there was a lot of looks and glances. And then after it was all over, we, of course, went to Pizza Hut after the wedding. And my friends are like, "Oh my God, did you not, do you realize?" And my girlfriend at the time was horrified. She didn't really think that she would upstage the bride, but she clearly had and felt bad and so on and so forth. But that's not the worst part of the story. No, the worst part of the story is years later, I was back visiting, and my friends, Keith and Dan, say, "Hey, Greg's getting divorced." And I said, "Oh, that's terrible. I was at his wedding." They're like, "Yeah, but, this finally gave his wife the excuse she's always wanted to burn the wedding album." I was like, "What?" And the best part of this is that I'm like, "Burn the wedding album? Why burn the wedding album?" And they're like, "Well, you've never seen it." And I said, "No, I've never been back and hung out at Greg's house, right? Like, no." They're like, "Yeah, every other picture has your ex-girlfriend in it." I'm like, "What?" So apparently it wasn't just a few people in the wedding who were sort of looking at my ex. No, the photographer, like all the pictures of the couple and, all the wide out, she was in every other picture of the black dress. And so apparently, when they got the wedding album back from the photographer, Greg's wife threw a conniption fit and never opened the album again. So I feel bad. So Greg is somewhere in the ether. He was a good guy. He was a BattleTech guy through and through. He played all sorts of games. He's the first person out of my gaming group from back home that I've lost in a long time. And I feel bad, Greg, that my ex upstaged your bride in the wedding album, and I feel kind of bad about that. But you were a great guy, and we're sore and sadder to not have you. And so I guess what I would say is, if you've got friends like that you haven't talked to or you haven't reached out to in a while, I owe my friends Keith a phone call, my friend Keith, my friend Dan, and all those guys. And I would really say, talk to some folks that you haven't talked to or roll dice with, because you never know when you're never going to have a chance to talk to someone like Greg again. And it's kind of a bummer. So
yeah, my gaming group from high school, college, we lost one member on 9/11. It's civilian. It wasn't a member of the service or anything, but he worked in the World Trade Center.
Yep.
And had been there for the first bombing in '93.
Oh.
And told those stories. So,
Yeah.
Cherish your friends, because especially the ones that you made over this joint thing that we call RPGs or gaming, because those bonds are special. And I still get together with that old gaming group of mine on a yearly basis every spring. We've been doing this now for the last 20 plus years, because we recognized when we lost Paul that we didn't want to let everybody else kind of slip through your fingers. It kind of happens. So we do a yearly gathering.
I had my friend Steve, his gaming group from when they were in high school. At some point while they were in high school, one of their key guys killed himself. And every year they get together around the anniversary, which unfortunately is around Thanksgiving or somewhere in November. But if they can, they all really come in from all over the country, and they get together and they play games for a weekend and spend time. And it's losing somebody from your gaming group. It just sort of does give you that kind of pause, right? That you're just like, oh.
I'm very lucky. The original group I game with, we came together for the last campaign the campaign I'm running now. My brother, and then Dr. Joe, and my friend Doug. I know this is 4th grade, and a few other people. And so 5 years later, we find ourselves all in the same place. We're like, whoa. And we did. We're going through Greg Gillespie's World Deep, and we've been doing it for almost 2 years now. Actually, I think it will be 2 years coming up in January. And the inside jokes are insane, because we have known each other since 1978 or longer. And we can literally just say 2 words, and everybody, all the 4 people that gamed in the original group, get it. And nobody else in the group is like, huh, what? And we're like, we can't explain it to you. It would take too long to explain what fireball means, because we had one. Dr. Joe had a fighter magic user elf, and his solution to every problem, much like the hammer is the solution to every problem if you see everything's a nail, was fireball, of course.
Of course.
And so,
liberally
he would get, his 9th level magic user would get like 3 fireballs a day. What do you need lightning bolt or dispel magic or anything for? You got fireball. Fireball, that solves almost everything. And so he would throw fireball at the least, perfunctory group of rats on the floor. Okay, fireball. But it's like, no. And so all we have to do is when there's a situation when they kick a door in, there's somebody in the 4 inevitably yells fireball. And nobody else really they get it now. We told them they don't really get it. But they're like, well, why is that funny? Like, you just had to be there. He was an idiot. He was just throwing fireballs right and left, back, forth, up, down, sideways, around. So, but that's always cool. And, one of the members of the group has Parkinson's, my friend Doug. It's waxed and waned over the years. It's better when he's taking medication. Yeah. Medication's expensive. It's been a struggle for him to get that insurance, and it's just a mess with that. But we're not younger, right? I mean, none of us are younger, and we get together and probably spend the first everybody getting together talking about our egg hurts and how this this isn't working anymore, and that's just what you do, because we're all of that age now where like, oh my gosh, what happened to you this week? Well, I fell down and this happened, and oh yeah, I bashed my stomach hurts and I don't know what it is. That's what we've evolved, unfortunately, is just complaining about our bodies breaking down on us. But it's important. I think it's really I consider myself very lucky that we're all in the same place and we can face-to-face game you know, in 2025, when we first met in Site 78, and we haven't been gaming continuously the whole time. There's plenty of times when one of the other of us were out of town or lived someplace else, and we went years and years without gaming sometimes. But it just so happens right now everybody's right in the same area. It's like, well, shoot, you know, what are we waiting for? Let's do it. It's been wonderful. It's really been, it's been very, I don't know what the word is for it. It's nostalgia, I guess, is a big part of it. But just the fact that, you know,
it's comfortable, right? It's comfortable in a fantastic way because your friends understand. I have a picture. I'll get it out for next week maybe. But when I left Kentucky and headed to Baltimore to sort of set out and try to find a career in gaming, my friend's wife did a picture of all of my buddies and so on and so forth, and you know, my friend Keith is sitting on a throne of Coca-Cola, and our friend Matt, who is frankly a pathological liar, Matt is holding maps to the Holy Land, because at one point during a game I accused Matt. I said, Matt, your ancestors, I said, there are still skeletons in the Gobi Desert holding maps to the Holy Land that your ancestors sold them, that led to nowhere, right? Like that oasis just has to be right over the hill. The bodies are still and those gaming groups, they're our lifeblood. Like they're our bread and butter. It's what we started with. It's the in jokes. It's nobody can just jump into one of those groups, right? This is why it's always so hard when the girlfriends show up, right? Because they're just like, I don't get it. What's all this? What is all this? I don't. He says 2 words and you laugh, and you're like, well, you had to be there, right? It's tough. It's very, very tough. And it's not
a lot of times. Why is that funny? Why when he says that is that funny? You're like, oh, you just had to be there. Then you tell them a story and you realize it doesn't sound fun at all. And they're like, I don't get it. That doesn't sound funny at all.
The story now would get you at least a 2-hour meeting with HR. At least a 2-hour meeting with HR. And papers would have to be signed. That's the worst part. Right? But I don't disagree. Somebody mentioned Fireball. Yes. Like really and truly, Fireball, the drink, is the real world equivalent of the Fireball spell, because nothing good happens after a round of, like, anytime you're at a bar and you hear the bachelorette party asking for Fireball, GTFO, just disaster.
Call the Uber driver then, because you might as well, because they're going to need the Uber drivers, and tell the Uber drivers to coat the back seat in plastic. Because
you know, I gotta say, I got convinced to go out one time for New Year's Eve in downtown Minneapolis. And we actually were in the club that was so hot. The guy had gotten us the best place possible. We were next to the booth that Prince would sit in when he would show up. Now, he wasn't there, but there were a bunch of people who looked like they hung out with Prince in his booth that night. And on our way home, of the 3 couples, of the 6 people in the van, 3 were ill on the way back home, and I was not one of them. But the limo driver came prepared, because as soon as we got out of the club, he took one look at us and said, "Who's going to be okay?" And like 3 of us were like, "I didn't drink, we're fine." And he was like, "Right." And he reached into the trunk and he got 2.5-gallon buckets and gave one to each of the other people and said, "If you miss, you're responsible for cleaning my car." And literally all the way back. It was just awful.
He was a professional.
So he was a professional.
See,
he'd done this rodeo before.
Yep.
I don't drink to excess, and even at like work parties, I'd go, I'd have my drink, I'd socialize, but I offered to drive. We had a Christmas party. I offered to drive one of my fellow sergeants home. I wasn't drinking. Didn't realize how much he was. Midtown Tunnel. We are in the tunnel, and I hear
Army so much more massive than mine.
The retching sound. I'm like, oh shit. Window down. It could have been a scene from a movie because his head was out the window, but I was just afraid it was going to hit the wall, because that would have been a bit messier than just the. He felt so bad. He wanted to pay to clean the car. Just get the hell out and go home.
That's right.
You know, I don't need it. Mike, you are haunting us right now.
That's right. Potato Cam.
I'm going to haunt anybody on the chat that decides to F
I
with me.
am here on the potato can.
Yeah, Greg's been picking on you, the chubby fun stuff.
I know. I just saw that because I realized I have my phone as well as my tablet, so I can look at two things at once. By the way, all the times I've been getting shut off, that is completely 100% every time user error. That is not the feed. That is me touching the wrong thing on.
I
That
don't
is
need
me
to know
wrong
what
touching.
I don't need
Right.
to know, but
Wrong
you touch
touch.
the wrong thing.
That's me bad touching, and when I
Oh.
bad touch, I
That
sometimes
somebody
shut off.
should make that their ringtone. I mean, that I want to hear that at North Texas. Walking along, somebody's phone rings. It's bad Mike talking about
Bad touch.
bad touching.
Yeah, this is bad touch. Yes.
This is the bad touch.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So, well, let's see. So I feel like we're sort of doing some lightweight, interesting stuff. Did you see the announcement that is the only good movie announcement I've seen in forever?
No, which one?
Oh God, this is great. Like somebody somewhere at Universal finally got their heads out of their posteriors because they are in pre-development for another Mummy movie with Brandon Fraser and Rachel Weisz.
Oh, they brought Rachel back. Thank
They
goodness.
brought Rachel back.
Thank
No
goodness.
offense to Maria Bello or whoever, but they're getting Fraser back and they're getting her back and they're going forward with another movie.
Wow.
And I am like, I'm in, right?
Didn't the actor
We were great.
He passed away, didn't he? Unfortunately,
Did
it was
he?
great. I thought
The
so.
House of Batiotis no longer has what's his name?
If he's still alive, I apologize to him, but I thought he'd passed away. But if he didn't, he's got to be in it too. We've got to see the debauched bachelor at age whatever 65 or whatever he would have been now. And
I'd be stunned. Well, I haven't heard that he's dead, but still,
maybe not.
And there is also too. There is a new Spartacus in development, right? And I'm just like, Showtime. Does Showtime even still exist? Like I can't remember.
I don't know. Is there still soft porn? I mean, that's
well. I think they know that they have to give you gladiators killing people and soft porn. So my guess is that the formula is not going to change. It's just what streaming network is going to jump on top of this. I don't think Disney, but
it's when you go to your elderly mother and you go, Mom, it's not the Spartacus that you remember. Please don't watch this one.
John Hannah still lives. John Hannah still lives, the Scottish actor that played her brother. And even better, though, and this better be a plot point, Arnold Vosloo still lives, who was great as the original Mummy in the first two movies. We've got to have him back, folks. It's not a Mummy movie without Arnold playing.
Yeah, I'd be good with it.
He was freaking awesome. Matter of fact, that's probably his.
I think Rachel Weisz is the one who launched a million hot librarian memes. Like I think that's the like when I think about it, like there was always the like dirty librarian sort of perception or whatever, but like the scene where she's kind of klutzy and she's up on top of the ladder and then causes literally all the bookcases to fall down. I still remember being like, librarian.
By the way, that movie holds up because they the summer they always show classic movies. They had The Mummy and The Mummy 2 a few years ago. We took the grandkids, and they were probably at the time, I want to say they were 15 and 12, and they loved them. They loved them. They said, "Oh, these are great."
There's so much to love about them, though.
Yeah,
they're the
really
greatest
good
part about them. Yeah, the first one you didn't expect it to be good, and all of the sort of Anubis warriors were pretty bleeding edge CGI at the time, and actually looked better than they should have. And then the second movie, what's so great about the second movie is up until you get to the like flying boat, it's the perfect Call of Cthulhu adventure, right? You've got the break-in at the mansion. They're trying to get an artifact. You got like a lot of bad guys to chew your way through. You've got reanimated mummies chasing a bus through London. Like all of this works on so many levels. And then when they get to The Rock as the Scorpion King, somehow they've gone to worse CGI than the first movie, and you're just it just hurts.
Oh, that was
terrible.
That was terrible.
But everything. No, it says Spartacus is on Stars.
Was
And
really?
the kid wasn't even annoying. The mummy wasn't annoying. He might be one of the few child actors in an action adventure.
He wasn't annoying in the second one, but the Chinese one, he's insufferable.
I try
Like,
to avoid thinking about that movie, Jim.
Oh,
I
it
just
was awful. It was terrible.
all I could think
And
about
let's not
watching
speak
it
of
was
the Tom Cruise mummy movie, which was supposed to be the reboot that then led to the Brandon Fraser third Chinese mummy movie.
it wasn't. So the Cruise movie takes place in a different universe. It's the Universal mummy.
Oh,
It's not a bad movie. It's not bad. It's not a bad movie on its own. But it's virtually humorless. It's a horror movie. It's a straight ass horror movie. And it's not. I'll just say it's not terrible, but it has nothing to do with the Brendan Fraser movies. It has zero to do with them. It's just it's a standalone. It's part of their Universal series when they were going to bring back Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dracula. They're going to bring back all the Universal that just never really coalesced, or it just didn't work out for.
Oh, that's right. That was
going
to be a cinematic universe, right?
Yeah. It just didn't work.
They were going to do what Marvel had done, but with monsters.
Yeah, I wish it
and
worked
as much
out.
as I would have liked to see it succeed, it just didn't.
And Tom Cruise always tries, right? I mean, he's a weirdo, but you can say whatever movie he's in, he's trying. He gave it his all in the moment. And like I said, if you're sitting around flipping channels one night on cable and you find it, it's not going to kill you to watch it. It's not terrible. It's not a terrible movie. It's just not. It has nothing to do with the Brendan Fraser series, which is it's just so good on so many levels. God, that movie's so great. It works as horror, works as action adventure, works as comedy. It just works as a period piece. Every part of it works.
The brother, when he sees the four Americans shooting with every gun imaginable, and he gives them the contemptuous look and says, "Americans." I've never felt prouder of my country than that moment. And I saw it just before I moved to Canada. And I remember seeing it and just loving it. And then after I had gotten to Canada, we ended up going to see a matinee of it or something. A bunch of us from the Canadian office. And so I'm the only American, and there's like 20 of them. And we went, and it got an even bigger laugh in Canada than it did when I was south of the border. It's just great.
And you were high-fiving the movie screen.
I was just like, yes, my people. Anyway.
No, great movie. I can watch that movie anytime. Like I said, it still holds up. We saw it just a couple years ago. And by the way, the big screen's the way to see that movie. If you get a chance, I don't know if people have you guys have that where they have like the summer, like every week they'll have an old movie or a classic movie and they re-show it. And because that's where I saw Jaws on the big screen for the first time. I saw Alien on the big screen for the first time. There's a lot of movies I saw on the screen for the first time during the summer movie series at whatever theater is in my hometown. And it was just awesome because I got to bring my grandson Jake. We got to watch Indiana Jones on the big screen, and there's a whole generation that's growing up, guys. I mean, it's hard to believe it. A whole generation's growing up not seeing Indiana Jones movies on the big screen. And let me tell you, it's a different experience on the big screen. A Spielberg movie on the big screen is absolutely the way they're meant to be seen.
Yeah.
And I can remember my youngest brother, who was too young to really just see it when it first came out. I remember years later, he was just poo-pooing Indiana Jones. Oh, yeah, whatever. But then I realized he saw it on a TV screen, probably a 12-inch black and white TV screen years later. I'm like, that's not gonna, it's not gonna hold up. Then you've got to see it on the big screen. But that's a great service because, like I said, seeing Jaws on the big screen was just incredible, and that's a Spielberg. Obviously, seeing when we saw Road Warrior big screen, they had that one here. That was great. Terminator and Terminator 2. I mean, every classic movie that just molded me in the 80s was in this service. And I took my grandkids to see them whenever I get a chance. We saw the Back to the Future movies on there, which is great. So it's a really cool service. If your city has a movie theater and they do that, definitely check it out because there'll be stuff I don't like either. They'll have something like they'll have like Women's Week with beaches. Oh God.
Okay, so now, Mike, you did try to kill him, but he is alive. John Hannah is the actor who played Rachel Weisz's brother.
Yes. And he's
Yeah.
alive. I just saw.
And
I
he
just
is
saw
alive.
that.
So yes, Jonathan is alive and could be in the next movie. So cross
And
our fingers.
but like I said, even more important, Arnold Vosloo is still alive, and we got to bring the original Mummy back, guys.
Oh.
He is so good in that role. He was just creepy as hell, and so yeah, I hope they bring the original cast back. That would just be awesome.
And give them credit, right? Like they did not have to include what's her name, the woman who Patricia Velasquez. I've got it in front of me now. I'm looking as Aung Sunamun. You know, they did not have to give her the role in the second movie. They did, but man, they took a character and they gave her a great role, and she jumped into it 2 feet, right? Like
because she was hot. She was really hot.
Doesn't hurt.
Super
doesn't
hot.
hurt.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
She was ooh la la.
Smoking, I think is the word you're looking for.
Oh yeah, she was a goodie.
It didn't hurt your eye, did it?
Well, that's good news, Jim. I'm glad to hear that because I'm glad Brandon Fraser's going through his revival period here, and he's got an Academy Award. He's getting some really good reviews because he was hilarious in Brothers. I saw that not too long ago. That's the one with oh gosh, I don't remember. Anyways, it's on Netflix. It's called Brothers, and he's the bad guy in that. He's hilarious, and he's definitely got a new lease on his life in terms of movies. I'm glad for him. He had so many health problems over the years.
Well, he also went through a terrible divorce and ended up having to pay for support for the ex-wife and the kids when he wasn't working. He gained a bunch of weight and was trying to figure out how to get it off because he gained a bunch of weight while he was sick. Like he just had a run of really bad luck. And Hollywood doesn't care, which is that ruthless part of Hollywood that nobody likes to ever think about or talk about. And he was as much a victim as anybody could be. So,
well, I mean, Hollywood doesn't care until they want the redemption story. They're like all behind you, like, he's the redemption story. They create that themselves. They knock down so you can come back up, and then they can say, "Oh, look, redemption story. It's beautiful." Yeah, you're the guys that did it. You're the guys that threw this guy in the trash, so he had to do the redemption story. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had to do the redemption story. But no, that's cool, man. He's still a good actor. I saw the Whale was good. Like I said, Brothers was great. He's been in a couple things. He's in a new movie called where he plays a replacement dad or something. That looks like that's going to be good too. So he's definitely on the comeback trail, and I'm glad for him because he seems like I've seen interviews with him. He's a good dude, man. You can tell he's a good dude.
And let's not forget Bedazzled. Is that the movie where what's her name is Satan?
Yes, that's Elizabeth Hurley.
Elizabeth Hurley, yes.
Wow.
I think she was still married to Hugh Grant at the time. And somehow they convinced her to not only do the movie, but to be Satan and to wear all these terrible outfits that are in jokes. And you're just like, oh, this can't be, one scene after another. And she just nails all of it. And you're just, oh, God, it's really good.
Yeah, those really terrible outfits. They were so terrible.
There's like I can't remember. I think that I don't know if it's a French maid costume at one point, but I know there's like a little girl with a parasol costume, and you're just like, this is terrible. Like, and she just leaned right into it and had the best time making it.
I think she wore a Los Angeles Lakers cheerleader outfit in one scene.
Yes.
And that was that made me happy. It made me very, very happy.
Yes. So let's see what other interesting news. I don't know. Like, of course, Hollywood can't do anything original. I'm one of the people that really liked Prey when it came out. I thought it was an interesting twist on the whole notion of Predator. They managed to keep it under wraps for the longest time, and it was a movie in production, but people didn't really know that it was directly tied to Predator. Until it was only a month or two out, I think, and then it leaked. And I see the new one. I've seen the commercials. You can't escape because its opening is coming up, I think, this weekend or next weekend or whatever. And I have high hopes. Like I'm like, but I just don't know if I'm going to go see it or if I'm going to wait for it to show up on Hulu. But I sort of want to see it in a theater. I like exactly what you said. I really sort of want to see. I mean, I went to see Tron Ares, and there were only like 20 of us in the IMAX theater that night. So it's not like I'm not willing to see bad movies in a
If you're interested in big screen stuff, for the next 3 weeks, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is on the big screen. After that, they're going to pull it, and it's going to be Netflix exclusive. But I have heard through the grapevine that it is absolutely phenomenal movie, and it's phenomenal on the big screen.
Really?
So if you happen to, yes, and so if you happen to have that, like me, I really like to see those kind of movies. Big screen.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to have time very busy next 3 weeks. I probably will have to watch on Netflix, which sucks. But I have heard through the grapevine it is spectacular on the big screen. And also that it's probably the best adaptation close to the book. And I had a lot of people tell me that it's number 2 behind the original Karloff Frankenstein, which the Karloff Frankenstein is a great movie, but it has nothing to do with the book almost. It almost has nothing to do with the book.
Yeah,
but it's a great horror movie. But it has gotten high praise from people whose opinion I respect, and so I'm interested.
Let's segue this. Let's go for movies. Let's segue from movies involving. Let's do this. I think I can pull this off. How soon do we think we're going to see an RPG based indirectly on K-pop Demon Hunters?
If somebody's not really working on that now, because they're stupid. They need to work on that right now. Yeah.
K-pop Demon Hunters is so big. There's even talk about Oscars. And if you had told me that this movie, if you had told me before the phenomenon hit, one of the big problems this Halloween is you have this entire set of kids that desperately wanted costumes of the girl band and the boy band, and there are no costumes to be had. People are literally making props and selling them on eBay, and people are trying to carve their costumes together. How soon until we see an RPG that tries to riff on this in a big way? I think we're about 6 months to a year out.
If it follows a Stranger Things trajectory, it will happen. And they've also okayed season 2 for K-pop Demon Hunters, although, which I thought was odd. This makes no sense to me. That they said that it should be out by 2029. I'm like, what? 4 years? It's not gonna take you 4 years to make that sequel, I wouldn't think, but I don't know. Maybe I just read it wrong. I thought they said 2029. Maybe it was 2027, which would be more logical. But I think that, you're going to see, you're right, Jim. In the next year, you'll see it because it was huge. My granddaughter, who is a big anime fan, she loved it, and she was talking about it all last weekend when they spent the night at our house, and she was going on. She's 17 now, so she loved it. It's the kid. Let's just say the kids love it, and I think it's going to have the Stranger Things effect, because we eventually saw a Stranger Things RPG, and we saw Stranger Things have an effect on society. It became the hot new thing. And, speaking of Stranger Things, by the way, last season begins around Thanksgiving. So
yes,
it's coming up.
Yeah, coming up. The first half is Thanksgiving, the second half is Christmas, and the last few movies are in January. So it's going to be a Stranger Things holiday season. It should be interesting.
And my Target, like all Targets, there's just a giant aisle of it, and then there's a giant standalone gondola of stuff. And as fast as they put it out, it's emptying out. Right? I was talking to somebody the other day, and I saw Hellfire Club T-shirts, and 2 days later, I was back at Target, and they were all gone.
Yep.
Merchandise is vanishing.
Jim, because everybody's watching they're trying to catch up, right? They're watching the old seasons, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I wanted to get a Hellfire Club shirt," and that's the marketing genius that will never die there, because that's.
But okay, so I want to go on record. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week, but I've got to go on record for this right now, which is the one thing that they haven't done in Stranger Things, D&D related, but would be the saving grace for the biggest mistake they made for the franchise. We've never seen anybody raise the dead, and if they don't raise the dead and bring Eddie back, it's the single most wasted opportunity ever, right? There's got to be a way for them to bring Eddie back to life, and then my God, what a great episode to have at Thanksgiving to go into Christmas, right? Like, oh my gosh, Eddie's back. And then all the Eddie Hellfire Club merchandise will just explode.
How many? I saw so many Eddie Hellfire Club Halloween costumes the year after that. The season 4. I mean, that was crazy.
Yep.
That was nuts. And I was at a Halloween party just 2 weeks ago, and somebody had a Hellfire shirt on and was dressed like Eddie. And it's been like what 2-3 years now.
Yes.
And they had the torn up the jacket with all the patches and the shirt and the wild hair, and I was, so it's that Stranger Things is still quite the phenomenon. This last season's probably going to blow. If Watsy's smart, that's always a dice roll. They're definitely going to try to jump on this bandwagon again. If they're not smart, they'll ignore it or push it till next summer or something stupid like that. Like I suspect they'll do. But if they're smart, they will lean into this heavily and get behind this. So,
well, I think they will. I think they have no choice but to I see the stuff at Target. I've seen the starter sets at Target. Good Lord, they even have like the old Monster cereals, Count Chocula and so on. They've got something with the Demogorgon on the front of it.
Oh, how great.
Like, okay, like every wheel of merchandise is spinning as fast as it possibly can. There's just no doubt about that. None whatsoever.
Eric, have we heard anything out of Watsy the last few weeks? Because they've been remarkably quiet.
Actually, Watsy's been very quiet. I don't think I've heard anything good after they announced Project Sigil it was on life support before they snuck around and they pulled the plug, which nobody was surprised by. The DNR went through. But other than that, the Watsy's. I look at Emerald and it's like, oh, there's a new product release. Nobody cares. I mean, they haven't stepped in anything, and they haven't announced anything significant. So,
what's the fallout from Sigil going down? Is there going to be any? I mean, besides heads rolling, or will there be heads rolling? Or is this just going to be like, oh well, we effed up again. Let's move on.
But remember, Mike, like, I throw this out as a longtime spectator of this horrific blood sport. Watsy likes to lay off people between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah.
And there is almost always, every other year, there's like a night of the long knives.
Yep.
Where a swath of employees are let go. And I say this not because I'm making a prediction, but if there's going to be some budget cutting and taking a look at things and some head taking, Watsy has historically, Hasbro directs that historically this happens during the fourth quarter. And I mean, this goes back 20 odd years. This goes back after the buyout by Hasbro. And Hasbro, this was policy, right? Like, you want these people off your rolls by the end of the calendar year. So we'll see.
Well, and here's the thing too with this whole situation. They already let off 90% of Sigil's programmers earlier in the year. Okay, that was, I guess, first quarter, but right after Page, they're like, oh yeah, this isn't doing what we wanted. And they laid off 90% of the staff, left on a skeleton staff to, I guess, deal with bugs, but no new programming. And now it's on autopilot for the next year. So I think that whoever they were going to fire from the Sigil side of things are pretty much, they're already pretty much done. And then the internal fight over who was going to be number one on the digital side, D&D Beyond or Sigil, I think that sorted itself out earlier in the year. I don't think that's an issue anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, and listen, folks, just so you realize, there's a reason why we bring so many independent creators onto this live stream specifically. Okay, it's to remind people that there's more out there than Watsy. There's more out there than Paizo. There are people that are creating that aren't chasing the dollar. They aren't chasing the ghost of Bad Mike, like apparently I am. But I mean, these are the people that produce because they have a love of the game.
Right.
And it's interesting because we found out on Sunday from Joe Block. I didn't know this about Joe, but apparently back in the TSR days, he interviewed with TSR. They flew him out to interview at TSR, and he didn't get the job because they were trying to sell him on working on Buck Rogers. And he kept on going, well, that sounds great, but I really want to work on Greyhawk. And he didn't get. That's somebody that's passionate. That's the people that will create material that you're going to come back and use day after day, week after week. Not, the people that are like, oh, what answer do you want? But I didn't know that about Joe until he just it slipped out in the conversation on Sunday's live stream, and me and Joe the lawyer were like, dude, you've been holding out on us? You never told this.
That's awesome.
Because they wanted, TSR at the time wanted designers. I mean, look at what Zeb Cook did. Zeb Cook started on D&D. He was the jack of all trades. I mean, he worked on Edition, but he also did board game and the Rocky and Bullwinkle game. I mean, whatever you needed Zeb for, he just did. And that's what they needed, people who could just quickly jump from project to project and do whatever. That they didn't really hire a lot of You're Just Forgotten Realms or You're Just Greyhawk. Now they did they did hire some people like you pretty much just did Ravenloft or Dark Sun and stuff, but most part you had value there. The more fingers you had, more pies. I mean, if you could do spellfire cards, oh, we need you. Oh, we could do that. If you could do that, plus you could edit, plus you could do whatever, then you had that was much more job security. So you see those certain people that worked at TSR, and they were like, they did everything. They were here, there, and everywhere.
Well, and Buck Rogers was an IP that for Lorraine was like a double bagger, right? It paid her from WotC, and it paid her as part of the trust,
the Dill Family Trust. Yes.
So, I mean, that's an IP that paid her twice. Of course, she was going to have bring somebody in. This is what we want to really push. And then Joe said they pulled like the latest Buck Rogers box set off a shelf when they decided not to hire him. It was like his parting prize. Here, you can take this. Thanks for coming out, and it's like it was bizarre. So
well, and
that was right before From the Ashes, which I believe was 91 or 92. So Joe just missed out probably on working on From the Ashes stuff. He'd have maybe stayed around for a couple of years. Might have pulled him to do some From the Ashes, Sergeants maybe, but that was right after the Buck Rogers debacle. When they came out with all that Buck Rogers shit that nobody bought, and so what I think is the late 80s, right? 89.
It was early 90s. It was early 90s because it was Dark Sun. Dark Sun followed by Planescape. And let me just say, there's the two most wonderfully egregious examples of double dipping in this game in gaming history. The first is Avalon Hill. Avalon Hill, Monarch, the Dot family owned Monarch Publishing, and everything Avalon Hill made was published by Monarch Publishing. And so Avalon Hill could have had an amazing year, and it's astounding how the printing bills from Monarch wiped out every last cent that they made. They were paying quadruple, 10 times what they should have paid. If they had bid the jobs out, they would have paid a tenth of what Monarch was billing them. Monarch just keeps taking all this money out of Avalon Hill. And the other was when Lorraine got majority ownership of TSR, when she bought out the Blooms, she was one of the recipients. She and her brother, Joe, is it not Joe? What's his name? Flint Dilley. Dilley. So the Dilley Family Trust is the trust set up by the guy who claims, because this was in court forever, He owns all the rights to Buck Rogers because he essentially bought them from the guy who created Buck Rogers. And the Dill Family Trust owns all the properties. So like they had a big spike of income when the Greg Evigan, or not Greg Evigan, the Jill Gerard show was on. So the 2 seasons of Buck Rogers that were on NBC, they made a pile of money from that. And then she saw this as a way to get Buck Rogers in print. And so TSR had to pay punitive licensing for Buck Rogers as a property. So the Dill Family Trust was getting that. There were residuals on sales in case the Buck Rogers game exploded. It never did.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons why TSR was so insolvent, is that every possible dollar the Dill Family Trust through Lorraine could pull out of TSR, she was. And people have talked about this and said, like, there's a reason we had acres and acres of Buck Rogers, is because we were told what to print. We had to do this to meet the demand, to meet the contract demands, and so on. It's just awful. It's terrible. Ugh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's like the forgotten history of TSR.
Right. You know, and yes, TSR made a number of bad decisions under Lorraine, but don't forget she had as big a hand in it as anybody else. I've heard so many people who worked at TSR complain, you know, we had ideas for great things and all of it came up short.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's just awful. So let's see. What else have we got this week in strange and adventurous new things?
I'm still waiting on my Dolanwood delivery.
Yeah, me too.
Everybody else has unboxed it and played full campaigns, and I'm still.
It's the next 5 to 8 weeks, I heard, Eric. So anytime in the next 5 to 8 weeks. So God knows when that is.
I'll get it in time for Christmas. I'll be so excited. You know, and I'm still a little disappointed that Gavin is canceling the BX Classics line listen. They got Dolanwood, they got Classics, they got Advanced. I understand why they're trying to streamline stuff. I can understand the business decision and not like the decision. Okay, that's the position I'm in. So, yes, spaghetti. Yes, waiting on Dolanwood. It's already late. It just feels even later now that other people are getting it and I haven't.
There's nothing worse.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing worse. You know,
like,
hey, I got it. Why don't I have my copy? Yeah.
Well, I ordered mine after the Kickstarter and I got mine. That's what one person told me. I was like,
the only thing that burns people more is when you see it on the shelves and then you haven't got your Kickstarter. That really,
yes.
There's a lot of people that really burns them when they're like,
that's an egregious
Kickstarter.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know. A lot though, you know. And by the way, it doesn't happen a lot with the indie creators, but it happens a lot with those, I don't know, first or
middle tier. Let's call them. That's what I always call them.
Yeah, I guess middle tier. The ones that want to be a little bit closer to the top, so they're like, I gotta get into retail. We gotta be seen, and they forget that the people that got them funded are the people that back the Kickstarter, and they're often the ones that get it last. That's a shame. It really is. It really gets my goat.
So I think this is a good time. I'll chat a little. I was talking about this a little at the start of the show. We've had a bunch of people pile in, and so I'll talk about this. We were going to have Tom Tullis on tonight. So Tom has a crowdfunding campaign for his new release. I think, is it on drive-through? I can't remember where it is yet. He'll talk about it.
It's Crypt Classics is on Kickstarter.
It's on Kickstarter. So he's going to be on the show next week. He had some things come up today,
awesome.
So he couldn't be on. But I had a phone call with him today, and we were talking about some things, and I'm sure we're going to dive into this in the show, but I was talking about it with a little bit with Eric before the show, so why not? This is probably a good time to talk. That there's a number of things. A few weeks ago, we were talking about how I went to my local convention the first time, and one of the things that I spotted was 4 or 5 dealers 4 or 5 dealers all selling the same 3D print dice towers and 3D print designs, right? That if you're a company that makes 3D printing files of miniatures and terrain and so on and so forth, it's very popular to have a merchant license. Some merchant license are very expensive. There's a very well-known company who has had a ton of successful campaigns. Their annual fee as a merchant is $4,000 if you want to print their things and sell them.
Wow.
That's a hell of a lot of stuff you have to sell to try to cover your $4,000 a year. There's other companies that offer, one-time only fees and so on and so forth. I'm sure Tom will want to talk about that. But one of the things that I have heard, and I had a big discussion about this a couple of weeks ago with some online folks. We're all part of a group of admins that run some miniature forums on Facebook. And we were talking about 3D printer file crowdfunding efforts. And just as I have said that there's been a golden age of RPGs for the last 10 years, there's been a golden age of miniatures as 3D printers have hit the market and what you can get and so on and so forth. But our discussion broke out among the admins, and somebody said, I'm getting so tired of seeing what essentially look like the same things over and over and over again. This house looks like one from a different company's campaign that looks like it was scanned, flipped, inverted, and said, hey, look at what we've done. That there's a sameness to all of it. Now, some of this is because of the technical limitations between FDM, filament printers, and resin, and so on and so forth. But the other is that if you look, the thing below the hood, and I know Tom's going to want to talk about this, when you look at people who use Kickstarter, companies that use Kickstarter, who have used Kickstarter for a number of campaigns, yes, there are some that the growth is still, the trajectory is going the right way. But there seems to be just I call it tires. They're tired, they're worn out, whatever. There's a lot of companies where their Kickstarter projects are not producing the same number of backers. They're not producing the same kinds of money. And I think what we're seeing is, I think we're starting to see some weariness of Kickstarter in particular, but crowdfunding on 3D printed files and so on and so forth as well, and probably some in the RPG space. And I think, we look at the last 10 years of role-playing games, and we look at the last 10 years of what's come out, and some of the things that we talk about all the time on the show. We talk about the OSR, we talk about Shadow Dark, we talk about all these other, and I call it the middle tier, right? These are not people publishing fanzines at Kinko's and stapling them and handing them out. These are people who make quality products, but they're not the same level as a WotC or Paizo or Goodman or whatever. But the middle tier is where you're having a tremendous amount of stuff come from. If you had told me 10 years ago we would have a Morkborg, if you had told me 10 years ago we would have had a Shadow Dark, think about all the things that have popped up in the last 10 years. And just as we've always had this feast for the last 10 years, I think a concern is that we might be heading towards some famine. And this is exactly what happened in the 80s, right? We had this explosion of BECMI, and then it started to come down. And that's when the middle tier exploded. That's when Call of Cthulhu and Chaosium was a big publisher, a good size publisher, but Call of Cthulhu got them through that period. And I think we're going to see some interesting things. Tom and I had the chat today, and he's got some really great insights as a miniature publisher, as a miniature manufacturer. But I don't want to give it all away. But he's got some pretty grounded ideas about what he sees coming and what he's doing, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it'll be great to have Tom on next week.
Well, I'm glad you called him and got him to come on next week, because he's always fun to talk to, and he's very knowledgeable about his subject. And he's really a self-made man when it comes to that stuff too. I mean, he that's all his own baby, and he started that all himself, and he's done an amazing job. And I wish he worked more cons. I know why he doesn't, but I wish he did more cons, because it's always great to see him at a con and talk to him, and he always did really good at cons. So.
Well, and let me talk to something. Most folks watching this, again, we're going to have Tom on next week, but Tom's done a genius thing, and Tom's done an absolutely home run idea. Tom has a Fat Dragon Games guide to 3D printing. So if you go over to DriveThruRPG, it's in the top 10. It's in their top 10. It's like number 1 or number 2, and has consistently been number 1 or number 2 of the $5 or less category. And so what is it? Well, he's trying to do it updated quarterly. And what it is it's a guide to how to get the most out of your 3D printer, be it resin, be it filament. He obviously has a few favorites that he uses that he likes, but it's $4.95. And he's been very smart about that price point. But what he's doing is every quarter he's adding to the book. And so he's not taking things out, but as more information about printers comes available, as more tinkering and so on and so forth, the document itself is growing. It's becoming more information. He's not taking anything out.
It's a living document.
What it is, it's $4.95 for a lifetime subscription to this book, which only is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's it. Fat Dragon Games Guide to 3D Printing. And what you're essentially getting, and I think this is, I mean, truthfully, if I was another company, I would look at this idea and I would grab it and I would run with it. Because every time he updates it and every time he expands it and updates it on DriveThruRPG, DriveThruRPG sends every single one of the people who have bought it a notification that it's been updated. This gives them a reason to download it again. This gives them a reason to look at all the new information about 3D printers. And it's fabulous. Like, this is a genius idea. And he's building up, for lack of better words, a subscriber list of people who are used to seeing the quarterly updates to this. These are people invested in doing exactly what his company does, which is making their own miniatures at home. And I think, again, this is that middle tier. Tom's a one-man band. He's sculpting. He's doing his own marketing. He's writing his own materials. He's the guy keeping the lights on. And he's smart enough to see what the potential is. Now, DriveThruRPG has been around for 10 plus years. And Tom is the first person I've seen to use this idea in a really great way. It's a living document. It isn't a closed document. He's updating it quarterly in line with his business goals. You know, he's going to do an update. He's going to do an update during this Kickstarter, I think, to try to sort of get some more oomph to go. But I don't see anybody else doing this yet. But we will, because for $5, as long as Fat Dragon Games exists, Tom Tullis is going to be updating this book, this guide. And as the technology grows and we see multicolor filament become an easy thing, and whatever the next stage is that we can't predict 10 years from now, Tom is still going to be there. He's still going to have his miniatures available, and he's still going to be updating this guide. So it doesn't matter if you have some bamboo that's 10 years old or you have whatever the newest thing out on the market. Tom's in that space playing around with it, working with people, and trying to give you tips on how to get the most out of your printer. And that's just fantastic.
Yeah, actually, on sale for $2.99.
There you go.
Ooh, can't beat it.
This, if you have a 3D printer, this is the best $3 you could spend on your printer. I can't say that enough. I really can't. Tom's a genius for having done this.
Yeah, no. Funny thing with me is I own a 3D printer because of Tom. I haven't set it up. I have no place to put it at the moment. I got to really rearrange stuff. But I got it because it was a good price at Micro Center last year. And I was like, when Tom said, for the budget you're looking at, that's the best printer you're going to buy. I was like, well, you know what? Let me go grab it. And when I'm ready to set it up, it'll be ready.
Tom has sold a lot of 3D printers. Like, there's no question that Tom is the guy who has sold a hell of a lot of 3D printers.
Yeah, he should have an affiliate link for 3D printers because he would be making mega bucks on it.
Yes.
Because he knows them. You can ask him a question about any brand, any model, and he will give you unadulterated, honest advice. If you've ever met Tom, The idea of blowing smoke up somebody's derriere is not part of his equation.
Yeah, that will never happen with Tom Dulles.
No, he's honest to a fault. If that fault is going to hurt somebody's feelings, he's not going to worry about it too much. He's not going to worry about it at all.
Rob, the printer is still in its box in another room. I couldn't even.
Show us the printer.
I think it was a Creality, but I couldn't even. I literally bought it. I think last June of 2024.
Oh dear.
I really got to do. I got to tear apart one room and turn it from a storage room into Rachel's workout room / where I put my printer. But we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom's a in an industry filled with people of interesting characteristics. Tom's a guy whose work in the space is pretty spectacular. I think a lot of what Tom's tried to do to help people, and I wish there were more people like Tom. I really, really do.
Yeah. Hey, can I just speak a sec? Be this weekend. We're going to be at LongCon in Longview, Texas, and I believe this is the sixth, seventh, and this is exactly my ballpark because this is the 250, 350 con where we know half the people. I'll be there with Gary and Zach Glazer and Ty Beard and Bill Barsh and the usual, collection of idiots, and my brother will be there, hopefully not wearing a Speedo and he actually just running a game like he needs to be. And this is the stuff we always talk about. Is these are the kind of cons you just don't miss. These like the Central New York Con and the Wizard Con and Dave Con and Arn Con and the one we went to this year, T-Fest in Austin. This is just where the nostalgia hits you because you remember going to cons like this when you were in high school or the 70s or 80s, and you go to a Comic Con that'd be like, the special. We had local Comic Cons in DFW. The special guest was always Kerry Gamble. Now, if you don't know who Kerry Gamble is, he was an artist that worked on Power Man and Iron Fist. He did a few other things. He did Marvel Team Up, but he didn't do more, and he wasn't more famous because he was a very slow artist. But he lived in Arlington. So anytime there was a convention, India Gamble was going to be on the list. And if you were a tiny convention and you're just starting out and you had 200 people, you called Kerry, and Kerry came over and he signed artwork and did sketches, et cetera, et cetera. Then this is kind of the same thing. These cons aren't about big name guests. They're not about, running multimedia, many day events. They're just about a bunch of people getting together and having fun and gaming, and then probably going out to eat, maybe having a couple of drinky poos. And this is the. I was thinking about this today because I was listening to Eric's video about the indie industry, indie gaming, which by the way that was a good video, Eric. I liked it. I had one person contact me that didn't like it. I'll tell you about it later. I'll tell you later because you'll laugh. This is the heart and soul of the gaming industry, and I made it a few years ago. I missed a long con, and I heard so many stories. I told my wife, this is usually the time of year we go down to Texas for a few weeks. I said, we're just going to have to push this vacation back till after long con because I am not going to miss such an epic long con ever again because the stories were epic, and sure enough, I haven't since then. It's worked out pretty well, but this is what we talk about. We always talk about supporting indie gaming, supporting smaller conventions, and this is the heart and soul, of our industry. I mean, yes, you have Gen Con, and you've got the bigger cons like Gary Con or Game Hole or even North Texas, but you need these small cons, and they're building up. And what I think about is a Chaosium Con that happens in the early part of the year. And I think it's going to be, this will be the fourth year next year. That started out kind of small, hey, we're only doing Chaosium games, which is basically Call of Cthulhu or RuneQuest or whatever. We're not really doing other stuff. Dealers can only really sell Chaosium stuff. I think they've opened that up a little bit now. But that's been growing, and that's grown to a pretty good size after 3-4 years, and that's getting a little cachet now because hey, if you want to see Rick Mines and all the rest of the Chaosium crew, you go to Chaosium Con, and I'm planning on going there one of these days. I don't know if it's going to be next year or maybe the year after, but I definitely want to hit Chaosium Con also. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, is that I know, like I said, I know Eric hits a lot of small cons. Jim, I saw that you've been to a couple of smaller cons this year too. It's just a different kind of feel when you go to a con like that than it is to one of the bigger cons.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think, we always talk about the one advantage of small cons, which is you've got a good chance of coming home without the bubonic plague. That's always a good, I'll start there, right? But the other is that small cons grow to become bigger cons, and you want to support what you're looking for, and people want to play and sit around a table. I think I saw a World War I went to my small local show, which is actually probably about twice as big as North Texas, as far as attendees go. But I went to my local show and I saw this World War I dogfighting game. Now, it was hopelessly complicated, and this comes from somebody who used to love fighting skies and ace of aces. It was probably needlessly complicated, but you know what? They had a full table of people who were happy to be shooting at each other, and good on them, right? That's fabulous. But if you want gaming in your area, you have to support it, and one of the ways you support it is going to the small cons. My first convention was a small con, and that's okay. Agriculture halls are for everybody. They're not just for ag. And Gen Con started out in an ag hall. You can usually rent an ag hall pretty cheap, and there's usually enough space. There's no reason not to. I mean, all of us have been in linoleum floored buildings made out of cinder blocks. It isn't a shame. It isn't a problem. And embrace it and kick off something. If you want something in your area and you don't see it, kick off a small con and start to do it.
It's magical to me when I walk in, because I remember the first Comic Con I ever went to was probably the late 70s, and it was small, and it was in a Holiday Inn that had seen its best days many years earlier, but it was just so magical. Oh, just to go in there and see all these other people that had comic collections selling all this stuff, and I was working for a comic book store at the time, and the guy had been comped a booth there. And so myself and another employee said, yeah, you guys go and sell. You can go sell your own stuff and do whatever and work there. And we went, and we were just like goggle-eyed. This is just the best thing. And I'm sure Kerry Gamble was a guest there because he was. But it was just magical, man. That magic of going to cons, man, that I am not jaded at all. I walk in those places and I'm still, whoa, this is awesome.
Well, every
people, right?
Every hobby has its shows, right? Like the biggest model train railroad show is York, Pennsylvania, twice a year. But there are always little regional model train shows. If you liked model rockets in the 60s, they would have model rocket meets where people would come together. And my dad was part of a group of guys that went to NARAM 8, where not only did they get to launch model rockets with other kids from all across the country launching rockets, but Jesus, they got to meet Vernon Estes. And the guy was missing a couple of fingers from where some rocket motors hadn't gone well. Mm-hmm. And Vernon he was an employee of the Estes company and was walking around smoking a cigarette. And if you were nice enough to him, he'd say, hey, kid, you want to hit out of my flask? Right? Like that's all he did. And that's how this, you could do a lot worse than to go to small shows and travel around and so on and so forth. So I love it.
Speaking of small shows, we have set the date for the North Texas Minicon in January. It's going to be the weekend of the 23rd, 24th. If you happen to be in the DFW area, or if you want to come into town, we have people that come from out of town now. It's going to be at the Marriott, the same place we have the regular convention. Well, if we get discounts, we will let you know in
as you
the
break
next
up
couple weeks if we. But it's we've had a blast the last year. Well, no, I'm sorry, Jim.
So I'm sorry. Are there going to be is there going to be a rate for the rooms, or is there not a rate for the rooms?
I think there will
I
be,
think
but you might have to wait. Gary's still working on that. You may have to wait a couple weeks for that. But yes, there should be a rate on the rooms. We're working on that right now.
Okay.
I think with our past reputation, we should be able to get that because, if you were having a smaller con, they're like, well, we're not really going to give you rates. But we last year, except for the biker gang that was there, we had that hotel was full. And it wasn't us, it was the biker gang. But we had quite a few people stay last year and the year before also. So we give them a pretty good amount of room nights during a time of the year when traditionally there are not a lot of conventions, which is January, right after the holidays. Usually you're pretty bare January, February, most of these hotels, but we have done really good for them the last few years. So we should be able to get a roommate. We'll let people know on the North Texas page when that happens. But it's gonna, it's got all that flavor of the small con. We have a little area that has like maybe 3 or 4 rooms, and we just do our thing there. I ran games last year, which I don't usually get a chance to run games. I'm so busy during North Texas, but during the mini con, I have no excuse, and so I run games, and Gary runs games, and a lot of other people do, and we have a blast. So if you're going to be in the DFW area, January the 23rd, 24th, check us out. It's gonna be that small con feel, man. Definitely.
There may be bikers. They won't be the same bikers from last year, but there may be bikers.
They told us at the end of the con that we're not going to let them come back.
They'll have to find another place.
They had the hotel was packed, and look, I had no problem with them. Nobody at the minicon had problems with them. They came in and they were polite and nice and asked us what we were doing. And it was, to be more specific, it was an organization of black bikers, and they had their convention in different places in the United States every year. And for some reason, DFW, because they had different chapters all across the United States, and so every year they had a different chapter. And so they had it there, and it was full. And let's just say that bikers like to party. They will party. There were shenanigans, and there was which I found amusing. And like I said, I was not bothered, but I could tell the hotel people were freaking out on several occasions. And let me tell you what, their food truck game was A+. They got their food trucks there, and we got to partake of their food trucks. They had a Cajun food truck, a barbecue.
Wow.
They had 3 or 4, and they were all just absolutely superb food trucks. The Cajun truck was so good. We asked them to come to North Texas next year, and they said, "Oh, we can't. We're going to be in Japan next year." Like, what do you mean in Japan? Like, they won some kind of contest where they got to actually go overseas with their food. I mean, that's how good
they shipped the food. That's bizarre.
They shipped the truck. Yeah, they shipped the truck over there. It was going to be some reality show, something. Anyway, it was amazing. So no, they were great. They would come in, and I was shocked how many people came in the room and said, "Oh yeah, I used to play D&D when I was a kid." And growing up, white boy in the suburbs, I did not run into a lot of minority gamers back in those days. Like
that turned into bikers. Yeah.
Well, that just period. The first black member of our D&D group wasn't until I think the late '80s. We had a guy we were playing a Forgotten Realms campaign, and he came by and was gaming with us, and that was the first time we had ever had one. Even in college, we didn't. I don't remember anybody in our college groups minorities, and so it was I barely remember any women really. That was it just there wasn't a lot of them, and it was really cool to see them come in there and go, "Oh yeah, I had a dwarven fighter named Bluto or something." You're like, "What? Really? Where were you when I was gaming? I never run into anybody." "Oh yeah, we used to game. We did this and that," and so it was cool. They were really fun, but I'm sure this year there will not be a biker group there. Well, like I said, they didn't bother me. I thought they were great, but it's going to be fun. Like I said, if you're in the area, January 23rd, 24th, we'll talk about this a couple more times before the date pops up. But I'm expecting a lot of people. We had quite a few people last year, and it was more than the year before that. So this may develop into a full-fledged somewhat of a con every years. Like you said,
Because everybody's
Jim, these
tired
things
of their
get bigger
families
times.
after the holidays.
Oh yeah, I got to get out of the house. They're like, God, get me out of here.
Absolutely.
If I can game with you guys, I'm willing to go there. All right. Zach's telling me he's vaping at the end of the dog park. I'm going to go pick him up. He may or may not pop back in.
All right.
Zach Glazer's a special guest, so I'll pick him up and see on the ride home. If you
Yeah, we don't want to hear a story about how you forgot to pick up Zach.
I can't. I'm airport now. This would be the epic, terrible story if I forgot him this time. But you know, I might do it just for laughs.
No,
but,
I know.
No, I wouldn't do so. I would do something like that
this time.
All right. So I will. I'll talk to you guys either next week or in a little bit. We'll see what happens.
All good.
Sounds good.
I'm going to stay.
Bye, Mike. All
The
right.
potato can was actually much better this time than it normally is.
Yeah, I know. I was very impressed. Very little Cylon.
It must be a russet potato can.
Well, he stepped up. Stepped up in the world.
That's right. What other interesting things of the weird do we have this week? I was trying to think of other stuff that I had spotted. Trying to think. I'm reading a bunch of stuff from the library right now. One of the things that I've gotten is John Scalzi's new Old Man's War book, The Shattering Peace.
Interesting.
It's really good. I started it this week and enjoying it. I really like that series of books. I have not been impressed with some of his other more recent books, but this picks right up where the last one left off, and it's a good continuation of the series. If you have not read Old Man's War, now at this point it's 15 plus, almost 15, 16 years old. I will favorably compare it to Starship Troopers. That's
impressive.
That's a pretty steep compliment, and I say that because the book posits that humanity has to have soldiers fighting, and they do, but there is, in that first book, there is a left turn at Albuquerque that just, when it happens, you just sort of put the book down for a minute and go, whoa. But Scalzi does a great job of building a universe out, and it looks really, 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 really good. The new one looks really good. All of them have been consistently. He's had a very good idea of how he wants his world to play. I don't agree with all of it, but I agree with most of it. And Old Man's War is a classic. It's a classic of modern science fiction. If you haven't read it, I would really recommend it.
I haven't read good science fiction in a long time.
Yeah, get it out of your library. Most libraries have a copy of Old Man's War puttering around somewhere. It's good. Now, Mike was talking about Chaosium Con. I've heard nothing but good things about Chaosium Con. Chaosium Con is where a lot of the things that you will eventually see published by companies get test bedded at their shows. And if you've ever wanted to play something before everybody else gets a chance to play it, I can't say enough good things. Alyssa Fadden and Skeeter Green have been rolling out their version of Horror on the Orient Express. If you had the original Horror on the Orient Express campaign from 25 years ago, they expanded it. They brought it out again, but their take on it has been very small, very intense. They rolled it out at Chaosium Con this past year. They just finished doing it again at Gamehole, and so they're making notes because the idea is eventually what they're doing is going to be published. And
really?
And I think that when it comes out, it will be one of these sort of landmark events.
Wow.
When you have an intensive, when you have a 2 or 3 day intensive event where your players are dressing up in costume voluntarily, you didn't tell them to, they do it because they want to. I was fortunate enough to be in the hotel where they were running Horror on the Orient Express, and you watch all these people come out of the games on breaks or whatever, and they're just talking about what they're going through, and and stuff with the characters and so on and so forth. I hope to play in it sometime this next year, and I'm looking forward to it because each iteration they're building on what they've learned from running other people through it. So they're making changes and tweaks along the way. And the only way you can do that is by going to conventions and jumping into the deep into the pool and giving it a try. I think the idea of company run conventions for a long time, the industry tried to sort of stay away from it. Let Gen Con be Gen Con, let Origins be Origins. But Avalon Hill used to do it. I'm not the world's biggest Avalon Hill guy, but Avalon Hill, you recognized that you wanted all these people there. They were going to buy your products if you had special booths and special sales and so on and so forth. And it doesn't hurt. Goodman Games had a convention at their warehouse in Indiana and opened up the aisles and said, go find stuff and buy it. We'll make you a deal while you're here. So I think there's a big future in all of that. And I like that. I do. I like that. And it isn't just, we'll have to ask some of the folks at Chaosium, okay, so I get you want to run Call of Cthulhu, and I get that you're all into this Pendragon stuff, and Ring, whatever. When are you having a Ring World tournament? That's what I want to know. When's the Ring World tournament coming? So I love this stuff. Come on. It's easy peasy.
No, it's good stuff, man. That's
trying to think. I'm in that sad period of I took down the Halloween decorations that I had up. I still have horror movies that I want to watch that I taped through the month. That I almost always watch this time of year. One of my favorite horror movies is the original version of The Thing from the 50s, Thing from the Universe or whatever. And I love that movie, but it's almost one of my Christmas movies at this point. I almost watch it like I watch Die Hard around Christmas time because for whatever reason, that's when it usually was rented out to local stations to show, and it would always show up sometime around November, December. So in my childhood, it was like that was almost one of those Christmas movies. You always saw it around Christmas. But it's interesting watching horror movies from the 60s, particularly the 60s and the early 70s. You see a lot of the influence in RPGs, and you see a lot of the influence. I was talking with a friend this past week about Dark Shadows. Now, I am just young enough to have missed Dark Shadows.
Same.
That's okay. I don't think any of us could charitably look back and call it the greatest show ever made for afternoon television. But it was pretty landmarky. It did introduce the idea of a daily serial with supernatural elements. And I taped House of Dark Shadows off of Turner Classic Movies a couple of weeks ago, and I watched it last week, which spurred the discussion with my friend, who is, they're squarely in the Dark Shadows fan group. And I've heard this from other people as well. I ran home from school to watch Dark Shadows, and I tried to ignore how terrible Barnabas Collins' haircut was. And you see the mansion that they're in and so on. So I watched the movie the other day, and there's all these little elements that show up in Chill, that show up in Call of Cthulhu, that show up. Some of them are traditional horror tropes and so on, but there's still some, this is why you watch the great vampire series. Hammer did Dracula, and they had Lee, what's his name? Christopher Lee.
Right.
And at the same time, they also brought in Grand Moff Tarkin, the great miniature gamer. They had I can't remember his name as well, but you had them fighting in the 1800s. You had them fighting in the 1880s, 1890s, and then somebody was like, wait a minute, let's bring them into the 70s. And so Dracula 1972 kicks off a whole new swath of Hammer films. And if you are somebody who watches if you're somebody who watches old horror movies or likes to watch old horror movies, I was talking about this today with somebody, and I said, interestingly, Amazon Prime, if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, they've taken in this, they now own the MGM catalog and so on and so forth. There is an embarrassing swath of late 70s, early 80s movies that they have available that are free with commercials on Amazon Prime. You don't have to pay to rent them, but you have to endure the commercials every now and then.
Right.
And so there's just all this, fur bikini sword stuff and horror movies and teenage sex comedies. And when you watch these now, it's interesting to see, like I watched a movie the other day and I spotted a TSR Basic, a Holmes box set in one of the movies. You watch this stuff looking for stuff now that you're like, okay, what was that they put on shelves in the background or whatnot. I used to know somebody who would watch Poltergeist and could tell you, or no, E.T. They watched E.T. and they could tell you exactly which miniatures were on the table when the kids were playing D&D at the start of the movie. And now I watch all this stuff, but all these great horror movies are so rife with ideas that you can steal, but some of them are atrocious. I try, if it's a bad movie, I try to get through it in about 15 minutes, try to
Right.
get the highlights or whatever. And I watched Humanoids from the Deep. I had heard how terrible this movie was. Like the cast thought they were filming a serious horror movie, right? That they thought they were making something like wasn't the Wolfen about werewolves in New York City? Was that?
I think so, but
Yes.
in other words, this was like the first Fantastic Four movie. It was the cast thought they were actually in a real movie. They didn't know.
Yes. So if you don't know, Humanoids from the Deep was made where the cast all thought they were making a serious horror movie. They thought they were making an honest effort. They all make an honest effort at acting and trying to bring the characters to life and so on. But what they wanted was they wanted a titillating movie. And so then they shot extra scenes with like one of them's a Playboy playmate and so on and so forth, where the monsters are attacking the women, and inserted the footage. And the cast and the director tried to get her name taken off of it. The cast didn't want to ever talk about the movie because they essentially felt that they had taken what was a serious, scary movie and they had made it a sexploitation disaster. And I had heard about Humanoids from the Deep for a decade or two, and I had never seen it. And I tried to watch through it the other night. And if I can get through a bad movie in 15 minutes, it only took about 7 or 8, and I shut it down and called it done. But there's still a ton of great, like all the Vincent Price, Roger Corman movies are there.
Oh my God, yeah.
So some of those are not bad. Now that said, please don't watch the Dunwich Horror. It hurts. At one point, a gaggle of female college students come up to the professor and say, "Ooh, professor, what's that?" And one of them reaches out, and I kid you not, he says, "Oh, that's the Necronomicon, dear. Don't touch." And you're just, how does it get worse than that? And yet,
I would leave it on my desk.
yes, don't touch it.
Jesus,
it's dangerous or whatever. But it's awful. But this is that time of year. This is that terrible time of year where literally on November 1st, all my stores around me became Christmas.
Oh.
And I'm not ready for Halloween to be over because it was Friday night. Like you couldn't have given me a couple more days of like spooky stuff. Like you hard stopped on Friday night. And it's also the time of year where we all start getting into that reminiscent time where we think about fall and we think about winter coming and we think about holidays. And that's when a lot of us got our modules or box sets and so on and so forth. I can remember the Christmas that I got A1, A2, B3, or not B3, S3, right? I was happy as a clam to sit in a chair and do nothing but read those modules that Christmas day. But none of my friends were willing to run them. And I wasn't willing to run them because we all got the same modules and we all read them forward to backwards. So there were no secrets per se. but this is a time of year where we're really reminiscent on that stuff, and we think about that, and so on and so forth. And the nostalgia really kicks in the closer we get to Christmas. And it doesn't hurt. Like Black Friday, we'll probably talk about Black Friday sales like we did last year, and
Oh yeah.
keep an eye open for, and so on and so forth. I think the way the economy is right now, I think everybody's going to be pretty aggressive about holiday specials and so on and so forth. I think some of the retailers are already starting it. If Stranger Things takes off the way it is, and you know somebody who's into Stranger Things, you should go buy the merchandise at Target now while you can find it. Same to at Walmart or whatever. Because if you know somebody, if you've got a teenager or know a teenager, or somebody in your family loves that, you should be buying that now. Like, you should quit watching this and you should go to the store and buy it now. I think it's going to be big. It's going to be huge because the kids are aged out. They're calling it done. But that's probably going to be some of the stuff that'll be on our Christmas recommend list. And we'll do that show. We need to do that show.
Oh, definitely. We'll I always pay attention to the Black Friday stuff, and as stuff comes out, you'll probably find me. If you subscribe to this channel, you go to where we have the posts.
Yes.
If there are things that are relevant to gaming, and when I say relevant to gaming, I even will probably include things like, hey, a very inexpensive laptop, or
Yeah.
tablet. I'll include links for you because, I mean, honestly, I love going to conventions with my little M1 MacBook Air. It's so light. It does everything I need, and I can record. If you do stuff that, and for me, I need a tablet so I can keep all my game books
Yep.
and make them portable. I won't fly with like a DCC book. That's like half my luggage.
Well, and that's just it, right? That so many of the publishers give you the PDFs when you buy something.
Yes.
I have a pretty good size drive-through RPG library, but mostly it's because I backed something on a crowdfunding project, and I've gotten the free PDFs fulfilled through drive-through, and I have an entire library of this stuff. You can find a used iPad for next to nothing that will run PDFs, and I can't say enough good things about having something like that on a trip. I usually, if I'm going to be typing, I take my Surface, but I took my iPad to Gamehole Con, and it was invaluable. I big fan of that. Now the other is, I'll just tell everybody right now, like, if you see me at a game convention and you see me lurking near a Starbucks, please know that I'm not buying Starbucks coffee. What I'm in fact doing is stealing coffee stirrers. I have an Old West miniatures gaming project that when you cut the ends off, these are great 2x4s, and you can shape them down to size and so on.
Oh, nice.
I probably looted 50 or 60 coffee stirrers while I was at Gamehole Con, and then I would spend the evening sort of trimming them up and so on and so forth. So I don't have a secret Starbucks problem. I actually have a coffee stirrer problem, which is probably sadder in a lot of ways. But I had the iPad in front of me for while I was building and doing some construction stuff, and it's just super handy. So find your tablet of choice.
Right. And by the way, listen, I am in the Mac economy, so to speak. I got a Mac Mini. I have iPads, but the current base iPad, every video I've seen on tablets, it's like, I don't know, 319, 329. It's what I actually want to getting for my niece for Christmas this year. We already bought it on Prime Days because it does everything my iPad Pro basically does, as long as I'm not like editing video. I don't edit video, if you haven't noticed on this channel.
Yeah,
Well,
I have spent time in the Mac graphic arts ghetto, as I always call it, right? Because when I was in journalism school, everybody was working on Macintosh Pluses, Macintosh
Right.
Ps, and so on. But their keyboards could not stand up to my typing. I broke a keyboard every 6 months. I would just destroy it. I was pushing 200 words per minute, and I was rock climbing aggressively to a point, or doing a lot of finger exercises, and I still have grip strength that's pretty crazy, and I would just beat the shit out of a keyboard. I've been in the PC world, the Windows world, for the last 30 odd years. I started with a 486, 66, and that's where I am now. My spouse is an iPad snob, and every 3 or 4 years gets the high end iPad, whatever the top of the line iPad is.
The Pro 12.
Yeah, and that usually lasts her for like I said, about 4 years, 5 years, somewhere in there. And then the cast off, I inherited her cast off, and that's what I took to Gamehole, and I loved it. I think that it's irrelevant really, unless you're into gaming, right? And anybody who knows me knows that Tuesday nights is my Stellaris night. I don't let myself play Stellaris except for the one night of the week, because if I did, I would play Stellaris every night, and I would be on Stellaris for 5 or 6 hours every night. I was in a discussion the other day about Fallout 4.
Okay.
And somebody had mentioned that they had been playing Fallout for a couple of years, and they discovered where you can see your stats, where you can see how many creatures, in your game, how many creatures you killed, how many, blah, 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 blah. And they posted their numbers, and they were like appalled. And those of us who've been playing Fallout 4 for the last 10 years, like every 3 or 4 years, I start a new game, right? And my comments were essentially the same as somebody else's, which is, kids, those are rookie numbers. If you think you're a serial killer and you've only killed 400 or 500 raiders, you aren't even close. And I said something to the effect of, the only game I've killed more fictional characters in is Stellaris, and the body count is in the trillions, right? And I love Stellaris. I absolutely love Stellaris. I don't think you can have the Mac versus Windows arguments that you used to anymore. I'm glad of that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. It just really doesn't matter. But I've got a lot of stuff. I'm hopeful. This is the time of year where we see the big Christmas releases, right? We see the big, whatever Wizards has decided is their big thing coming for Christmas, and I don't know what it is. I'll take a peek. But all the manufacturers need to have something that does well at this point, and we'll see if it happens or not. I don't know. I don't think there's anything on my radar gaming wise that I need. There's a couple things I'd like, but there's nothing I really, 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 really need, and that's okay.
Right. It's probably the way it should be.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I don't have some things to read.
Or watch.
Let's see. So when I go to Wizards front page, there's a push for subscription. Stranger Things, Welcome to the Hellfire Club. They're pushing the new D&D starter set. But I don't see, I can remember how big a deal it was when S3 came out. I can realize what a big deal it was when S3 came out. And A1 and A2, and then we had that interminable wait until the summer when A3 and A4 finally came out. But I love this time of year, right? I love the fall. I'll be outside. This is close to the leaf apocalypse where I live, and I have way too many trees in my yard that in the next week or so are just going to dump way too many leaves. But I love this time of year, right? Because we all go inside. We're starting to do inside stuff.
Yep.
Gaming takes off, and this is why, going back to earlier, like, you got to stay in touch with your friends, talk to your friends, and so on. Yeah, it is.
We don't have Mike for the audio CD best of, but I'm sure that you have a movie or two.
I have only one movie this week, and it's the only one that I've been waiting, and it is Hard Boiled.
Oh, damn.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Like, I can't tell you. This is John Woo's love letter to Hong Kong, as he was getting ready to leave to go to Hollywood and make movies for Hollywood. And so you may have seen Hard Target. That's one of his. But Hard Boiled has a very special place in my heart. So I moved to Baltimore from Eastern Kentucky in 1993. Ended up working for Games Workshop. And by 94, by the springish, late spring of 94, I went to the big city from a small town, and a bunch of the folks at Gaines Workshop were all cinephiles, and they all had different things that they were really interested in. This group of people that I worked with are also the group of people the first time I ever saw the movie Seven, and we talk about you can't spoil certain things, right? You can't spoil the movie Seven. I talked last week about The Mist. Oh my God, you can't spoil The Mist. You can't spoil Seven. You can't spoil certain movies like that. But one of the guys brought up at work one day, he was talking about all these Hong Kong action films that I had never heard of, that I had never seen. This all went over my head. And so they were talking about the Heroic Trio, and they were talking about all the Super Cop movies with Jackie Chan and all this. And I had never heard of these. I'd never seen any of this. But one kept coming up over and over and over again. That like the piece de resistance, the masterpiece, was Hard Boiled. And, you file this away or whatever. And I think I was at somebody's house and they showed me A Better Tomorrow. I had seen The Killers. So I sort of had an idea of John Woo's, ballet of violence, choreography of violence. And it was certainly different from anything, if you were in the 80s and you watched Predator and Commando and all these other movies, Cobra, Stallone and Schwarzenegger were really the two guys that were sort of defining this, but then also Tango and Cash and some of these other. But I went to Farpoint, which was this little regional Star Trek convention in Baltimore, in northern Baltimore, because somebody had tipped me off that a guy who sold bootlegs of all these Chinese movies was going to be there, or Hong Kong movies was going to be there. And I would probably be able to find a copy of Hard Boiled. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I went, and I have some stories from that. It's the only time I ever went to Farpoint. I think it's the only time I ever went to Farpoint. And I have some stories from that show. It's a small show, but it was also there was some weird in that show. Again, Star Trek, make of that what you will. But the guy was there. And I said, as soon as I found the table, right, it's just these tables with videotapes. And he says, what are you looking for? And I said, do you happen to have Hard Boiled? And he goes, I do. I have one copy left. And I said, great, I'll take it. And I think it was $25 in 1994, $25 or $30. And I bought it. And I looked around and I didn't see anything else that really jumped out at me, but I took it home. And on the way home, shocker, I know to anybody who knows this, I love pizza. I got a pizza on the way home, and I decided that what I do is Saturday night, I wasn't dating anybody at the time. I was just going to settle in and I was going to watch Hard Boiled and have a pizza. And my roommate was gone. I think he was gone with his girlfriend. They were off somewhere. But I was home alone on Saturday night, and I started watching Hard Boiled while I was eating. And it got to the opening scene takes place in a dim sum restaurant, which when I was in Hong Kong, I actually looked up the outside of the restaurant and I went around to some of the location shoots. But I was watching the start of the movie, and lo and behold, I just got caught up in it, and my pizza went cold. And I ended up towards the back half of the movie, I ended up sort of half-heartedly eating the pizza. But when it came to an end, I rewound it and I watched it again. And it left such an impression on me. It's a hard-boiled detective movie. You've got a somewhat bitter detective on the Hong Kong police force whose nickname is Tequila. And he likes to hang out in an American jazz club or a Hong Kong jazz club, playing the saxophone and knocking back tequila. And he's after some gun runners who have killed his partner in a shootout at the start of the movie, and he's going to take them down. And we have no doubts that he is. But what he doesn't know is that the Hong Kong Police Department has somebody buried deep in the Triads organization. And the closer our detective gets, the more heat is being applied to our undercover agent. And again, I don't want to spoil how the movie ends up and so on. You don't have to go out and buy the $50, $60 4K copy of Hard Boiled that I ended up getting. Thank you, Amazon. I think I got it for $40 because of the lowest price.
Right.
But I literally ordered it the day they put it up for pre-order. If you go out on YouTube, you'll find the entire movie on YouTube because the rights for it have been in contention for the last 25 years.
Oh, really? That's
and it's finally been sorted out, but I'll do a cursory search. But go out on YouTube. You can find the movie. It's available. You should watch it. But if you watch the opening scene at the dim sum restaurant and you're like, holy shit, I want to watch the rest of this movie, you should. If you're like, that's a bullet hose, no gun has that many bullets, that doesn't make any sense, and I can't wrap my head around it, you should not watch the rest of the movie. But like in America, we have stuntmen and there are limits to what they can do.
right.
And John Woo was like, hey, how about I give you $300 to let the guy on the motorcycle come off the ramp and hit you in the chest with the tire as he comes off the ramp? And the stuntman's like, yeah, all right. And it's just crazy. But it has explosions, it has guns, it's got triad flunkies, it's got endless cops that are being mowed down and have to be revenged. It has shootouts, it has everything, and it is John Woo's masterpiece of Hong Kong cinema. I think it holds up. As soon as I get off the show tonight, I'm going to go sit down with a Coke and I'm going to watch Hard Boiled for the first time in 6 months. And I still have my videotape copy of Hard Boiled. And when they robbed me in Canada, when I moved to Canada in 98, in 98, when I moved to Canada, I got robbed. They took all my movies, but one of the few they somehow managed to miss. They did not steal my copy of Hard Boiled. So it survived a felony robbery. It survived all this. I just love that movie. You should go watch it. That's my movie of the week. It's Hard Boiled. I can't.
There's your recommendations, folks.
So everybody's like, I came to see Tenkar talking about WotC. Why are we talking about this?
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. No. We're trying to be a nicer, more happy, uplifting.
But really and truly, right? I think one of the great things about gaming is it does expose you to different things. It exposes you to different ideas. I was never a Michael Moorcock guy, and I had friends who were deep into Elric. And then after being around them enough, when Berkeley started doing all the Michael Gould covered Moorcock books, I jumped on the bandwagon and I got them all, and I loved them. But I wouldn't have known about that if it wasn't for D&D bringing me together with friends with different tastes, right?
Right. D&D, it pulls from so many sources.
Yes.
It isn't just Tolkien. Okay. And then it isn't just, this type of fantasy, that type of fantasy. You can do so much with just the basic rules.
Yes.
So
yes. I'm a big believer that what role-playing games really do is they open doors to other things. You have to be brave enough to open some of the doors, and you also have to be smart enough to say, I'm not opening that door, I'm good. I leave that all up to you. But I know I appreciate things now 30 and 40 years later in a way that I didn't at the time. But the reason I do love them so much now is because I was at least willing to give it a try and so on and so forth. And that's it,
Yeah.
There you go. So
folks, live streams the next 3 nights. Next Sunday night special is a week from this coming Sunday. So we try to keep you entertained. Other than that, thank you. Like, subscribe, you know the deal.
Oh, please. Let's not do, hey, like and subscribe.
That's why I'm like, you know the deal.
That's right. And hey, look, we actually have people in our comments versus those subscribers.
We actually have a community.
We have people. Yes.
People who need people. All right, folks. Thank you much. We'll see you.